Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode here on the Resto Saga Classic Car Restoration YouTube channel. And this week we're back looking at the Toylander. As I'm sure you know, the lockdown is continuing here in the UK, so I am confined to the garage. So what we're going to do this week is have a look at a complete tour of the Toylander and talk about the entire build to date. This is episode 14 off the top of my head. So I did a catch up at episode 7, so 7 episodes later I'm just doing a full recap of everything I've done right from the start to where we are now and what the next steps are as well. So let's take a walk around the Toylander one and tell you about what I'm up to. So starting round the front of the Toylander one, the biggest thing you will note if you've been following this build is the fact that the bonnet has now arrived. Thank goodness for that. Now the downside is, because of the lockdown, all the shops are closed and I can't get any colour matched paint bought or indeed any etch primer. So it's going to have to stay like this. Now you'll notice I have it up on these drill bits. Those are 4mm drill bits. I'm using those as packers for which to space the bonnet with. You'll see there's quite a significant gap around the top edge of the front panel, and that's because I was very naughty and I didn't follow the instructions and went ahead and fitted this purely because I wanted to see what the front end would look like all in one piece. So I'm going to have to take the front panel off, grill off, and then once the bonnet is fitted with the 4mm packers, lift the front panel up just to fill that gap. So that's the main change from last. And moving around here, the anti-loose catches have arrived to the tailgate. So those are the main changes at the minute. Up here you'll also see some aluminium which I've been working it with for the windscreen and perspex as well. So that'll come in a future episode. So what is the Toylander 1? The Toylander 1 is a half-scale model of a Land Rover Series 1 80-inch. And it's actually quite accurate whenever you go through the plans, certainly from a body styling point of view, not obviously from the chassis and the drivetrain. My Toylander 1 is built from marine ply, and I bought 2 8x4 sheets of that at a cost of around £50 each, so £100 in timber. A lot of the joints are done, this is 20x20mm batten, and I bought 3 or 4 lengths of that. That was probably about £30, so the wood costs are minimal, say £130 to do all this. Paint was about £80. This is a colour matched RAL coated Land Rover limestone, and it is done to match my own Land Rover, which will eventually be restored to its original colour, which is the same as this, so the two will be matching. And this is for my little son. So I built it all off plan. Those are the plans there. Plans themselves cost £50. Spent a lot of time cutting out the wood with a jigsaw. And it all came together quite well. Most of it can be done at home. I asked my brother-in-law, who is a joiner, to router this edge and give me a nice curve, which is appropriate for the Land Rover. Also to router this. Cut this angle the correct 15 degrees, and also use a plunge saw to cut the door gaps in, just so it looks absolutely proper. The wood is all glued and screwed, all the joints. I used, let's see if I can show you my wood glue over here. This is it here, Tight Bond premium wood glue. It's an exterior wood glue, great stuff. And my joiner brother-in-law tells me that it is actually stronger than the screws. So interesting, I didn't know that. So that takes a significant amount of time, and I did get quite fed up cutting wood, measuring and all that. But when it's come to putting the body together, I've really enjoyed it. The painting was a bit painful, and also the body shaping, sanding, filling and all this and primer, that got a bit annoying. But once it all started coming to colour and I got to add the details, that's where it really started to come into its own. The only bits that aren't wood are these little wing edges. Those are actually aluminium. I bought the preformed sections from Toylander themselves. I think it was about £6 for the pair, and those made that job significantly easier. Moving on to talk about the details then. If you've been following this build, you know I'm trying to keep quality as high and cost as low as possible. So I've been trying to find all my own components and buy as little from Toylander themselves. Not that I have any problem buying from Toylander, just trying to keep the cost low. So the bonnet is from Toylander themselves, the wingtips and the plans. Those are the only things I bought from Toylander so far. Everything else I've either made myself or found for myself on the internet. eBay is great for this. The grille I found on eBay, cut it out myself to Land Rover's dimensions, and actually Toylander, the grille they recommend is like straight bars, whereas this is the wavy ones, which I think is more appropriate for the Series 1. The headlights are actually reversing lamps off a Land Rover Defender, so buying them as such from eBay is significantly cheaper than buying the Toylander branded ones, or ones even advertised on eBay as Toylander items. Like I said, RAL1015 for the paint. This is just standard silver paint with a lacquer, and I used the same acrylic lacquer over everything. Moving on round here, what else? Painted the seat black, bit of a contrast will also make it clear that it is the seat. Just generic hinges bought off eBay. Trying to keep everything as much stainless steel on here as I can, or aluminium, but just not something that's going to rust. Painted this half and half so it looked like the seats over the top of the tub, and a wee aluminium finisher. This aluminium was all bought generic off eBay to the correct measurements in the manual, and I've cut it, sanded it, drilled it, countersunk it, all the works myself. Also the same, these little finisher bits, I just bought one sheet of aluminium, very cheap, and I've formed those myself, and I find it quite satisfying. Rear lamps, those are actually just reflectors, again, actual genuine Land Rover parts, which is quite cool. I could put lights in, but you'd have some exposed wiring down the inside, which I didn't really want. So I might put those in at a later date, but not entirely sure. These are just generic stainless steel handles, and I painted on the cross member myself just by making a template to the instructions dimensions. Tailgate, I'm still not entirely convinced I'm happy with, but we'll get there. Again, generic hinges, and these wee vent holes are just stainless perforated sheet, but again bought off eBay itself. So there's been plenty of work done to date. Next up, as I said, is to get the bonnet painted and fitted with its hinges, get this windscreen fitted, and then this body is going to go down to storage, because then there's quite a lot of metal work to be done. Mainly make a rear axle and a front axle with the steering mechanism, the brake mechanism, and then get some motors fitted, and that should actually be pretty much it. There's obviously a dashboard to go in with the steering wheel as well. I'm trying to make as much of this as I can by myself. I will buy a Toylander steering wheel, a Toylander dashboard, and probably their little pedals, their little pedal, because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make a pedal just as nicely as they have. The motors I will probably buy from Toylander themselves as well. They're expensive. And the wheels, because the wheels have to be right, otherwise the thing is not going to look good. And it has to be high quality. So far I'm gauging about the cost of this has been about £300-ish by the time you've included fittings and paint and wood. So not too bad. I hope it'll come in under £1,000 by the time it's finished, because the motors and the wheels are quite expensive, and I'm going for the twin motors, which obviously adds cost. So plenty happened so far. I think I'm probably about halfway through the project, and this being episode 14. Probably the episodes will get a little bit more spaced out once the lockdown lifts in the UK and I can get out and about, because I can do a little bit to the Land Rover, my own Land Rover, and get a new springs ordered and get the suspension done as well. The differential's undergoing a rebuild, and there's a few other little projects like I'm trying to make a bracket for these bicycle carriers, just little things like that. So I have other things going on, but I'll be sure to make as many videos on it as I can and keep you all up to date. So there you are, yet another episode here on the Toylander. This is more of a walkthrough and an explanation as to everything I've done so far, plus a little bit of detail as to what's coming next. The Toylander series as a whole probably isn't the most popular episode series here on the Resto Sega Classic Car Restoration YouTube channel, but there do seem to be a core of you who really do seem to enjoy it. So if you enjoy it, give it the thumbs up, and make sure you've hit the subscribe button down at the bottom, and also if you could turn on the little bell icon, that would be great. I'm also happy to answer any questions or comments you have, I reply to all my comments. Just stick that down below and I'll be sure to get back to you quite quickly. Thank you all for your continued support here in the channel. The subscribers do seem to grow steadily day by day, and that's really great for me. So once again, thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you again next week and we'll take it from there. Cheerio.